The executive branch. The executive branch. Focus question. Who leads the executive branch and what are the jobs of this branch of government? Introduction. President Lyndon B. Johnson looked into the cameras. My fellow Americans, he said, I am about to sign into law the Civil Rights Act in 1964. Johnson explained that the act called for Americans of every race to be treated equally. Johnson finished his remarks and signed the bills using many different pens. He gave the pens as gifts to people in the room, including Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The signing of the Civil Rights Act was an important day in United States history. However, for the President of the United States, most days are still busy days. In one day, the President might attend meetings, make a speech, visit a school or hospital, sign a bill into laws, and host leaders from other countries. This is the executive branch at work. Executive branch in the U.S. Constitution. In 1788, American leaders adopted the Constitution. It laid out a system of laws to help govern the young country, a system that has changed over time but is still used today. Under the U.S. Constitution, the executive branch carries out the laws of the United States. The President of the United States is the head of the executive branch. The Constitution divides the U.S. government in three branches or parts. The executive branch manages most government businesses and departments. The legislative branch, which consists of the U.S. Senate, the House, or Representatives, makes law. The judicial branch watches over the U.S. justice system through its system of courts. Sometimes the different branches cooperate and compromise. At other times, they oppose each other. The Constitution gives the President broad powers. However, the President is not a king. The presidency is an elected position. Many of the President's actions are overseen by Congress and federal courts. The Constitution lists three requirements for the presidency. The President must be 35 or older, must be a natural-born citizen of the United States, and must have lived in the United States for 14 years or more. How Americans choose a president. The United States is not a simple democracy in which all citizens make decisions together. Instead, it is representative democracy. The people elect leaders who make decisions for them. Presidential elections are a good example of how this works. When the citizens of the United States cast their votes for president, their votes do not make the final decision. Instead, the president is chosen by electors from each state. Electors usually follow the popular votes in their states. The person who wins the national popular vote almost always wins the presidency. However, that is not always the case. When the popular vote is close, the person with fewer total votes can sometimes win enough electoral votes in the key states to carry the election. As of 2016, the United States had 5 presidents who lost the popular vote but won the electoral vote. Organizations of the executive branch. Many people in the executive branch help the president. For example, the executive branch includes a vice president. The vice president is elected along with the president. They are expected to take over if the president cannot continue with the presidency. The executive branch also includes departments that oversee American schools, the military, and taxes, among other things. The leaders of these departments make up the president's cabinet. The cabinet has grown since the early days of the U.S. history. President George Washington's cabinet had only 4 members. Now the cabinet has more than a dozen. What the president does. The president has many powers. For example, the president commands the American military. They can send the military anywhere in the world. The president also has the power to pardon criminals who are guilty of federal crimes. The executive branch is responsible for the country's relationships with other countries. The president chooses ambassadors who represent the United States abroad. They also have the power to create trade agreements with other countries. In addition to sending armed forces to help other countries, the president can sign treaties, agrees of peace between nations. However, the U.S. Senate must approve the terms of the treaties. The president chooses Supreme Court justices, cabinet members, and agency leaders. Many of these choices must be approved by the Senate. The president has an important role in making laws, though the executive branch does not write laws. The president has the power to approve or deny the laws that Congress makes. When both houses of Congress pass a bill, it is then sent to the president. If the president signs the bill, it becomes law. The president can instead turn down a bill with a veto. In this case, the bill does not become law unless Congress overrides the veto. Congress can do this only if two-thirds of its members in both houses vote for the bill. 70,000 decisions. During each two-year term of Congress, the president nominates people from nearly 17,000 jobs. This includes the president's choices for federal judges, U.S. attorney, cabinet members, ambassadors, and others. The Senate approves most of the president's choices quickly, but this is not always the case. Supreme Court nominees, for example, must always undergo long examination by the Senate before they are confirmed. Historic actions of the executive branch. While the executive branch does not make laws, the president can write executive actions. These are the president can write executive actions. These are instructions from the president to the government. Some of these decisions change Americans' lives. During the Civil War, for example, President Abraham Lincoln ordered that enslaved people shall be forever free. And in 1935, President Franklin D. Roosevelt created the Works Congress Administration, WPA, which gave thousands of American jobs. WPA works made roads, built schools, and planted trees. Some executive orders have been harmful, however. One example happened after Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, in 1941. This attack brought the United States into the Second World War, 1939 to 1945. After the attack, President Roosevelt signed an order that lets the U.S. government force Japanese American citizens from their homes and imprison them in camps. There, they were treated as enemies of the government. 4 terms of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, the 32nd President of the United States, won the presidency 4 times. His presidency stretched from 1933 to 1945. He brought the country through both the Great Depression and most of the Second World War, though he died just before the war's end in 1945. After his death, Congress limited the presidency to 2 terms. Checks and balances. Under the Constitution, each of the 3 branches of government, the executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch, serves as a check on the others. This prevents any one branch from getting too much power. The president's veto power, for example, is a check on the legislative branch. Normally, Congress needs a president's signature to pass a bill into law. To date, U.S. presidents have vetoed more than 2,500 bills. Congress checks the president through the power to override the veto. Congress also checks the president by approving or blocking the people chosen by the president to serve on the Supreme Court and the cabinet. Though the president is commander of the armed forces, only Congress can officially declare war. Congress also have the power to remove a president from office through a Congress called impeachment. Try again. While it can be hard to override a veto, Congress can sometimes save a bill through a different process. Revision. If Congress moves or changes aspects of the bill the president dislikes and manages to pass it again, The presidents may approve it on the next go-round. Finally, the executive branch checks on the judicial branch because the president chooses federal judges. The judicial branch checks both the executive and legislative branches by making sure that both Congress's laws and the president's orders are constitutional. The writers of the Constitution gave more power to the legislative branch than the executive branch. However, the power of the executive branch has grown over time. For example, one of Congress's checks on the executive, the power to declare war, had faded into the background. Congress last declared war in 1942. All military the Iraq wars has been taken by the executive branch without action from Congress. Conclusion. So far, the Constitution has worked as its writers meant it to work, even though the powers of the executive branch tend to change over time. The executive branch has been able to carry out the nation's laws. At the same time, the legislative and judicial branches check the president's power. The government of the United States, therefore, is balanced between its executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The Constitution ties the three together. As for the presidency, it is likely to continue to change as the needs of the country change.